The Northwest home for paranormal. You're listening to U.S. Phenomenon with your host, Mario Magana.
From the Pacific Northwest in the shadow of the 1962 World's Fair, the Space Needle. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are on God's green earth, if it's still green for wherever you may be. Good evening. Welcome to U.S. Phenomenon. I'm your host, Mario Magana. Tonight, we welcome back a longtime contributor. He's a journalist who's ventured deep into the heart of America's paranoia. Mark Jacobson, author of Pale Horse Rider, William Cooper, The Rise of Conspiracy and the Fall of Trust in America. Believe me, that could be so true right now. With a career spanning decades, bylines in the New York Magazine, Jacobson has chronicled everything from hip-hop legends, and we'll talk about one tonight, to Holocaust artifacts. But in Pale Horse Rider, he turns his lens on one of the most influential and controversial figures in conspiracy culture, Milton William Cooper. Cooper's book, Behold the Pale Horse, became a cult classic, especially in the prison libraries, and helped shape the modern-day conspiracy landscape, from UFOs to government mind control. It is my pleasure to welcome back to U.S. Phenomenon, Mark Jacobson. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Hey, Mario, how are you?
You know, I'm
always glad to be here.
I'm just a side of perfect, and one of our good telecom guys would always say, I'm like, how you doing? He would always say, just a side of perfect. So I would say that that's what I am right now. With everything that's been going on the last couple of weeks, you know, the Diddy trial, this Alcatraz, alligator Alcatraz, I figured I'd come to the guy who had spent a lot of time, and I know that there is probably, I know there is a cult following with this whole, you know, William Cooper stuff. But with everything that's been going on, I wanted to, at least before we get into this Alcatraz thing, alligator Alcatraz, and what some people are considering kind of a modern day concentration camp. I want to go back in time just a few weeks ago to the Diddy trial. I know that there was a lot of speculation. What was the East Coast vibe on that? What was? I mean, I know there was people on the streets flinging, you know, but what was the consensus from the East Coast side of things?
Well, I mean, Puff Daddy or Sean Combs or whatever you want to call him, he's never been the most popular rapper around. I mean, he's just not that popular. He, you know, I don't think anybody was particularly surprised when the charges came up.
Right.
But the idea that the feds, you know, when the feds are really slipping, I think, really. I mean, there used to be a time when the federal government wouldn't bring a trial unless there were 100% chance that they were going to win.
Right.
They wouldn't do it, you know, and now they're losing all the time. I don't know why that is, but, you know, I mean, talk about overcharging. I mean, you know, I mean, is he really a RICO candidate? I mean, you know, like John Gotti's a RICO candidate. Right. I mean, these kind of people, you can't. I mean, they've had so much success with that kind of racketeering thing that they just think it's appropriate for everybody, and it just wasn't going to work. You know, I mean, they got him on these other charges, and you know, Mr. Combs is going to be. There are over 100 civil suits that are pending. So he's going to be a busy guy. You know, he's not getting off, you know, that kind of stuff. So, but the idea that they're going to send him to jail for the rest of his life, you know, I don't know how old he is. Maybe he's going to go to jail for the rest of his life, even if he's only convicted on these lesser charges. But it's hard to tell. So I tell you, you know, there was a lot of press about it in the beginning. And then people I knew that were actually covering it, their papers pulled them off it because it wasn't getting the clicks. People weren't that interested, which is sort of surprising to me, you know. It wasn't that interesting.
So when we talk about a lot of these other past cases, obviously, no, not made for TV like the OJ trial, where everyone was glued to the TV 24/7, just watching the case itself.
Well,
I guess.
OJ was like a big, massive figure. I mean, he was a football player. He's on TV
Sure.
commercials, and he's in those Naked Gun movies. I mean, Sean Diddy Combs. I mean, for the most people, I mean, I hate to break it to you, but I mean, most people really can't tell the difference between Jay-Z and Sean Combs. I mean, they really don't know. It's he's huge. I understand that, but
Sure.
he's not that huge.
I mean,
You know,
especially for someone like yourself, who's been, someone who has had many encounters with very legendary rappers. Um,
yeah. I mean, he never really. The thing about him is he never really rapped. He was like
take that.
he,
Yeah.
never, he rarely ever made he rarely ever committed his voice to a recording. I mean, he's just sort of there running the show, and so he wasn't beloved in any way, shape, in the way that any number of rappers really are.
Right.
But so and that video of him kicking his girlfriend in the hallway. I mean, it's just sort of like this guy's a piece of dirt, so let's just not even think about him much.
Sure.
OJ is a beloved figure. I mean, I covered the El Chapo trial in New York in the Brooklyn Eastern District, and that was a huge deal. I mean, there was press there every day, but it had more legs than this thing in a way. This was like an inch. It was like about an inch thick.
Right.
It wasn't really about anything except that this guy was. I mean, it was kind of creepy, but you can watch Eyes Wide Shut and watch kind of creepy sex stuff. But
Right.
but you know, it just wasn't it didn't have the juice of a kind of like a mafia trial. I mean, I'm going back time, but I mean, like when Gotti or these kind of people were on trial. I mean, there were all kinds of everybody was interested in it. This was only interesting to some people. It's only interesting.
Very, very small, a very small group. I mean,
Well, it wasn't small, but it wasn't big.
yeah. I mean, you think of someone like myself who, I have a picture with Diddy, and from years ago from the radio station that I worked at, the top 40 CHR rhythmic station here in Seattle. What was interesting was I never was a huge Diddy fan. I thought he was a complete just jerk when we met him in person. He wasn't nice to any of the
Not
staff.
nice. He's not nice. I mean,
No.
I did a story about Charlemagne. Charlemagne the
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
and I would just went to his show every day for a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
and they brought in every single one of these guys who was like a big shot because
Right.
the Breakfast Club was a big deal at the time, and
Sure.
still is, I guess. And they were all nice except him. It's like, they were all nice. I mean, like 2 Chainz, nice guy, man.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, all these people, like, they're all nice. I mean, I know he's got a bigger name than some of these people, but he just wasn't somebody you really wanted to spend much time with.
You're referring to Charlemagne the God and not Jay-Z or not Diddy, right?
I never interviewed Diddy, but I mean,
Yeah.
Charlemagne had all these guys on his show.
Yeah.
Charlemagne's a sweet guy. I mean,
Yeah.
most of these people are nice, but
Yeah. Most of them. Yeah. He just interesting. My interactions.
I mean, I interviewed
Oh,
Biggie. He was nice. Biggie was nice.
yeah.
Tupac was nice. I mean, they're all nice, but this guy was not nice.
Yeah, what an interesting. I mean, someone asked her like, "Oh, he's when he said the other day in court, I'm going home." I was like, "No, not with when you say something like that. They're going to definitely keep you for that arrogant type of comment." I just didn't see that they were going to let him walk out of the federal.
Well, he beat the big charges, but
Sure.
that's on the prosecutors. You
Yeah.
can't charge something and hope the jury is going to believe your case if you really, they just weren't going to buy that. I mean, I don't know. It just didn't hold that kind of same water that some of these other cases did.
Everything that's been going on in regards to the news. I mean, people were celebrating the 4th of July in the last couple weeks. It's interesting to me that I've seen both sides of the fence. Some people celebrating the 4th, some not. What's interesting to me as we continue to kind of continue to drive through another chapter in this administration's second term.
Ah.
It seems to me that they have doubled and tripled down on everything to see. It's almost like throwing something on the wall and seeing how much of it sticks versus if it
Well,
just sliding off.
well, I don't know what your opinion about this stuff, but the scary part is a lot of it is sticking recently. This guy's on a roll, man. He's on a roll. He's got everybody thinks that. I mean, and actually, I got to say, I'm not a Trumper. I'm
Yeah.
really not. But I got to say, some of this foreign policy stuff that he's been pulling, recently has really worked out for him. And if it's working out for him, it's got to be working out for the United States of America in a lot of ways. And since I'm a loyal, patriotic American, I can't just reflexively
Right.
dislike everything he does. I
Sure.
mean, I mean, dropping that bunker buster on the Iranian place, regardless of the fact that whether nobody's going to ever find out whether until not now, nobody's going to know what it really did. But I mean, it shut those guys up pretty fast. And he's just I don't know, he shoots from the hip, but he's destroying people's lives. There's no doubt about it. But public relations wise, he's doing excellently.
It's interesting because someone who has spent a lot of time I would say back I would say around 9/11, after completing the book Behold the Pale Horse, I was probably thinking that we were going to start going to these we were going to start what the book refers to as going to your local post office to check in to be sent to a camp of some flavor. I was like, that's what I thought was coming next.
Well,
Lo and behold, 25 years later.
I mean, you just people notice when you send. I mean, in this new budget thing, the big beautiful bill,
Yeah,
see how much more extra money there is for ICE. I mean, unprecedented amount of money for basically this internal. I mean, I'm not going to go over the cliff and call them secret police because they're certainly out in the open. But
sure.
this is a you know FBI. There's a million different police units and groups of police in the United States, but nobody has ever done the kind of things that these guys do. They come in with masks, they take away people, they do it right in front of everybody else, and it's just a little out of control, and people are beginning to notice, and it's going to really the rubber's going to hit the road at a certain point, and they got an extra how many billion dollars they got for their budget. There's going to be more of these things, and I don't know. I can't. I'm not in the head of the American public to be able to figure out what exactly and when enough is enough.
Where's the threshold? When do we stop? As William Cooper said, when do we become lions and not sheep? Do you feel like they're people? Is it the idolization of the administration, or are they flocks of sheep? What do you think here?
No, I mean, well, flocks of. I think that Trump's got a base of about 25-30% of people who can believe that anything he does is going to be good. And then because they're true believers, so he's almost a demigod to these people. So um and I can, guy gets shot in the ear supposedly, and he's fine. I mean, when you see that, if you're already inclined to believe that this guy is sent by God, then how much more proof do you need? So, it's a lot of people. I mean, I think a lot of what really it is and there's a lot of reasons why. I don't want to jump around too much, but people have a supernatural bent to them, and they want to see magic happen, just like it happens in the movies. And alongside that is the real impatience and kind of like just democracy is just so boring. It's
Sure.
so boring. Nothing happens. I mean, you can go on for weeks, and it's just these guys are just talking. When's the action going to break out? When's the car going to catch on fire? So, that happens. It was going to happen, and Trump is a genius at being able to fulfill people's expectations of a guy who's going to walk in and is going to make all the decisions for them. Like you don't have to think about it. Republican, it's not that long ago that these congressmen would actually, you could imagine a Democratic congressman voting for a Republican bill the other way around. It's not that long ago. I mean,
Right.
and now that's not happening. I mean, zero Democrats voted for the big beautiful bill, and the Republicans, they had a little bit of a problem, but the problem came from the people on the right who felt it didn't go far enough. So, I mean, how are you going to vote for something? I mean, one thing that has come out that's very clear is that Trump's not a populist. He's not a populist. He's a pretty much of a straight Republican guy who's going to lower taxes, for his people. And that's his main goal. And the rest of the stuff is all smoke and mirrors to keep people distracted from the fact that he's making out like a bandit and his buddies. So, and that's nothing new. That's been going on forever. It's just that nobody ever, it's like it used to happen behind closed doors. That's the William Cooper idea,
Sure.
because and William Cooper died. I mean, just to use Bill Cooper as an example of somebody who might have been tapped into the fact that his destiny and his fate was not in his own hands, that people were making decisions that are around him. And despite the vaunted American idea of the individual, like every man has got his own,
Right.
little castle and all this kind of stuff. And I got my pickup truck and that kind of stuff, which is, and the people who I live in Brooklyn, right? I mean, people are like that here too. They just got different kinds of pickup trucks, so like,
Right.
and when you begin to understand that all those ideas of people behind closed doors, the wizard behind the curtain, one of Cooper's favorite ideas was the truth is in the hidden. The things you can't see, that's where the truth really relies. So now, but that he said all that stuff before the internet. One thing that's interesting about him, I mean, people that know who he is, I mean, he had a radio show, like not that different than the radio show we're on now, more or less, without pictures. And he would rant about this kind of stuff, and sometimes he was right and sometimes he was wrong. But that's, he was a personality on the radio. But most of these radio shows were like um satellite radio shows, and the signal didn't come in that well,
Right.
and all kinds of stuff. So then, and he's talking basically, because people always talk about 10 years before. That's what they know. They know 10 years they don't know what's happening, tomorrow or even today, because they haven't been able to process all the material. So, but the things that happened a few years before, then you had time to think about it, and you've come up with a coherent idea about what might have happened, right? So Bill Cooper is talking about stuff that happened in the 80s and the 1990s when he's on the radio, and then he dies in 2001, 2 or 3 months after 9/11. So if you want to say the 21st century, I mean, the 21st century began on 9/11. That day is the beginning of the 21st century. Like sometimes the 20th century, most historians believe the 20th century didn't really begin until World War I, which is already 1918. So they're 18 years late, but the 21st century came right on time, right? 2001. So look where we're at now, where the truth, or the so-called truth, is no longer behind closed doors. It's like everything you can see, everything you want to see on the internet. Yet then you begin to really lose trust because seeing ain't believing. And that's something that people, you always believed that the picture was worth 1,000 words,
Yeah.
but that's not the case anymore. It hasn't been for several years, right? And everybody knows it. So therefore, the more people you can't trust, the more paranoia that you're going to have about, are they out to get me? Are they not out to get me? I can't even tell from looking at the video whether it's fake or not. So if I believe in Jesus Christ or something like that, some kind of supernatural power that I'm believing is infallible, does not trick you, always true, right?
Right.
So it doesn't, you know, we're not going to get into theological discussion here, but um, that that is a powerful thing, and it's no real surprise that evangelicalism and stuff like that has increased since the internet came about. And it's not just because these guys can advertise on the internet. It's like you can't believe what you see. So what are you going to have faith in? So you might as well have faith in the Bible, and the Bible is telling you. And then if Trump is the guy who, even though when he walks over to the during the first Trump administration, he walks over, he's holding the Bible. Remember when he held the Bible up?
Upside down. Yeah.
Upside down. He doesn't even, it's, well, there's only two ways to hold it. So he held it upside down. I mean, to me, the fact that he held it upside down is an interesting little symbolic thing because he
Sure.
doesn't care. It's upside down or right side up or inside out. He doesn't care. It's just he knows that he's sending these kind of semiological signals to the people who have the receptors to be able to, they have that kind of spiritual thing about them. And that's kind of where we're at. I mean, in a kind of like loopy way of describing it.
It's interesting because if someone who like myself who's looked at this book and has taken for a grain of salt entertainment, maybe value, um, in regards to behold the pale horse. If I am remotely like going back and like reading the book again, and I haven't, but from my memory,
Why not?
yeah, right, because I feel like that we are in a modern day of what some of the stuff that William Cooper talked about is happening. You're talking about these, but it's not behind closed doors. These guys are, well, masks, if they're masked iced individuals. And are they truly ice? Are they, are they
No, that's another thing that you can't, you don't even know if they're actual ICE agents because they don't show their badges.
right?
So, yeah, it's really kind of, there was a very strong wish, I think, for some daddy guy to come along who's going to tell everybody what to do. You go sit in a corner or, whatever it is. And this guy's the guy. I mean, look at the world. There's not been one change. I mean, maybe there's people can write in and tell me what they are, but every change of government that's happened in the past 20 years or so has been towards a more authoritarian government. I mean, and that seems to be what people want, So, I mean, if you have a democracy and they vote for a all powerful leader, what are you going to say? I mean, you're going to say, well, that's really terrible, but the people voted for it. I mean, I'm not disputing that Donald Trump won the election. I
I'm
mean,
not,
I'm not as sleazy as those people who claim that Biden stole the election. I mean, he's the winner. Okay, that's fine. I mean, you put
I,
up with
I
it.
mean,
But
we
I
know
tell
that.
you, America. My feelings about America are I have a much more patriotic attitude about America since Donald Trump has been the president than I ever did because it's in trouble. The idea of the Constitution, all that stuff that's in there, all that assumptions. There's a reason why people did things the way they did them. It's because they wanted to, the military goes out there, they don't swear allegiance to the great leader. They swear allegiance to the Constitution. And the Constitution has not changed. I don't care what the Supreme Court says. It stays the same, and you can interpret it any way you want to interpret it, but you can't just get around it. And that was one of the things that William Cooper was very upset about. He would say, okay, let's take a look at the Fourth Amendment. Searches and illegal search and seizures. Every time they're tapping your phone without, that's an illegal search and seizure, and whether or not they got to, I mean, the warrant culture, the culture of getting a warrant, it's like not a, it depends on who's ordering the warrant. I mean, it's a very slippery slope that we have going on here, and I personally am concerned for the first time in a long time, about the future of the republic to which I pledged allegiance to every morning in school. So at the last, I'm a protester. I got to say, I'm going to come clean. We went out on the No Kings thing, my wife and I, and you know what, and we have we've been carrying these signs, right?
Sure.
Like we had a sign, like my wife had a sign. Gleeful sadists should not be leaders. So that kind of stuff, right? Or like or like when Musk was around, when he was seemingly he was easier to make fun of.
Right.
So this time on this particular big protest was like 250,000 people there. Our sign wasn't one of these things. It was the American flag. We carried the American flag the entire way. It was raining like cats and dogs, and we held the American flag as we walked through this thing. And some of the people didn't really like it that much, but I didn't give a shit what they think. I am an American, and I do not like the way the government is handling things. So almost everything that William Cooper said, which he's seeing it through one lens, from one direction, that somehow, I mean, I don't even know who the boogeyman was in his cosmos. Like the Council on Foreign Relations and all these other people like that. Now you turn on PBS, which they're trying to get rid of because it's public radio, public television, and the Council on Foreign Relation guys are on there all the time, and they're they're like the mainstream guys. These are like the normals, the Council on Foreign Relations, who in William Cooper's book, Behold the Pale Horse, they never changed this. It was a fold out thing. Remember that? The fold out at the end had every single person from the foreign relations that he could get the name of, and it was there. It showed you the invisible government that was keeping you down. The invisible government that was covering up all this stuff that was, Bill Cooper had a lot of, different crazy ideas. I would admit they were kind of nutty. I mean, he was fundamentally correct, but his details were a little bizarre. So like, sometimes it was cover up the flying saucers. Then he stopped that. Then it was all about the Freemasons and stuff like that. And it was, he kept on looking for that force, that one thing that you could figure out was controlling everything. But I don't think that now in this world where things are so much more complicated, not or complicated to try to figure out, you can't put it. It's not just one group. It's not the guy, the Secretary of the Interior, or whoever is the bad guy.
Sure.
There is no bad guy. The bad guy's in your head, my friend.
Yeah.
The bad guy is in your head because you continue to I mean, people, like I'm looking at my telephone. It tells me how many hours a day I spend on the telephone. It's like
Sure.
the other day I broke my own record. My phone was on for 5 hours. So like, I'm feeling like, what? I mean, I'm just a fucking robot, I mean,
Right.
it's not like, I'm so, I mean, I'm just a regular Joe. I mean, and you begin to examine yourself and you go like, well, what's wrong here? I better look at myself first, So I'm trying to go back to first prima facie kind of things. Who am I? I'm a guy from New York who is an American. I happen to have, I mean, then there's all kinds of other stuff. I'm a Met fan. I'm a this, like that. I mean, all those different, things. But really, at the end of the day, I'm somebody that wants to live in a country that I can live in a country. And if it's going to keep on going like this, you
Well,
know, it's
it
going to be
seems
more difficult to live in it.
it seems to, for those who may be on the other side of the spectrum, where they feel like, ah, I can breathe again. Like it's either swayed too much to one side or swayed to the other. And I feel, and I know I'm just saying, in regards to how someone may perceive that this right here, the modern day of what we are living in, this is what I attest to this. This goes back to 2016. We would not be in this situation, and for this, hear me out on this. We wouldn't
Okay.
be in this situation if the Democrats did not go get those Bernie votes. Donald Trump would have never won. The isolation.
Well, I agree with you completely. I mean,
That's just
Joe Rogan, who was Joe Rogan for before he was for Donald Trump? Bernie Sanders.
yeah,
He wanted I got a lot of respect for Joe Rogan. I mean, he's is somebody who looks at a certain kind of thing, or people like him, and I feel like some kinship with him. When you're trying to push a system which just is slow, no longer, it doesn't work anymore. You need changes. You need systematic changes to be able to make the thing work. And the Constitution is supposed to be able to adjust for the times. These guys were really smart, the founding fathers. They might have had slaves and done all this other stuff that
sure,
people are so happy to talk about, but they came up with a good system. I mean, one of Cooper's favorite quotes was when the lady comes over to Benjamin Franklin after they write the Constitution, and
right?
she says, "Well, what kind of government are we going to have, Dr. Franklin?" And he says, "A republic, if you can keep it." In other words, it's not that easy to keep a decent government. The citizens have to do a large part of the work, and they can't look the other way when these kind of huckster people who are coming claiming to be politicians get in office. And then, I mean, I would like to find out how many of those people that voted for that bill on the Republican Party really wanted to vote for it, and how many of them voted for it just because they think that Trump was going to kick their ass. So like, it's just not it's not democracy at this point. It's some kind of like, it's not fascism like people, like moron people over here like say. It's something else, but it really bears watching. And if
It,
you're gonna be a homer for the other side, for either side, you're gonna miss what's going on. You can't be a homer.
I think that's the biggest thing that I really, why this show should be, why it exists. We need to ask questions, and we need to bring to the awareness of those who are just like, yeah, this is great. It doesn't affect me because I'm not, I was born here. My family's from here. I don't need to worry about.
I can tell from your name that you're not an American, Mario. Come
Yeah.
on.
Well, I'm not referring to myself. I'm more referring to
I mean,
you know,
well, I mean, that's what America's supposed to have immigrants in it. That's the whole idea, right?
right.
So, I mean, if you can't, if I don't know. I mean, I have this brutal knockdown, drag out arguments with people about this because I'm from an immigrant family. I live in a city where
What was the
almost every single person is within the past 3 generations is an immigrant, and it seems to be working just fine. So,
right?
I mean, yeah, it's got its problems. The 12 million people's crammed together
I,
in one place. There's going to be some problems. Yeah, okay,
right.
well, I understand that. You know, but
It,
gee
it, it
whiz.
it just seems that to me that uh, if I'm to look at the whole big picture, look, I'm an American. I was born here. My mom was born here. My dad wasn't. He's a naturalized citizen. But
Well, maybe they're going to look into that.
maybe they might.
Somebody look into that.
I,
I
I I
mean,
mean, I kid you not. So what? Then I'm gonna have to go back to Mexico and start selling feet pictures on OnlyFans. I mean,
I don't know if you have to do that, but you might want to consider buffing up your technical skills.
yeah, in a different foreign language, right? And I don't even speak the language. How many?
Well, you better start going to those classes, man. But,
It is. There are
I mean, I'm not
hundreds.
interested in going back to your Romania. I'm
Right.
just not. I'm not interested in that. I've been to Romania. I
And,
don't
and
want to go back.
I,
You
and,
know?
just like the president of the United States is also someone who is from an immigrant family. So
You know what? You know what his grandfather did for a living? You
I,
familiar with this?
I
They
don't.
they ran whorehouses in the Klondike during the gold rush in Alaska. That's where that money comes from. The first bit of it. And then the rest of the next chunk of money comes from his father is the king of blockbusting, which meant that he would go around and tell all these little Italian and Jewish ladies who live in these houses near Coney Island, the black people are moving in. You better sell now. It's called blockbusting. That's where Fred Trump's money comes. I mean, it's not. He didn't make us up. The apple doesn't fall that far from the tree, my friend. So and yet all this kind of stuff. I don't hate Donald Trump. I don't hate him.
I
I
don't.
mean, I don't hate him. I mean, I'm from Queens. He's from Queens. I understand that personality. I grew up with people like that. I know him, and yeah, he's a prick, but there were always pricks around when I was growing up. I mean, so I don't like. I'm not interested in having anything to do with Mr. Vance or Elon Musk or any of these people
Well,
like
I
that.
mean,
But
now
Donald Trump, I know him. He's one of my guys, sort of in a weird way.
it,
So
it's interesting to me because you just you touched on the Elon Musk piece where the two were fighting like schoolgirls in high school having a cat fight, and basically who had the bigger, and the guy was like, yo, if he says anything, I mean, the guy was like, I'll throw him out of the country, basically, not
well, he saw Donald Trump. Just he saw this jerk off coming a mile away. I mean, he says, "Oh, you're the richest man in the world, huh? Okay. Well, I mean, you got to give me some money if you want to get in on this. I mean, I'm the president. I'm going to be the president. I mean, you want to.
right.
Like Elon Musk. There was a famous old movie, right? Betty Davis. She goes to the big Southern thing. Everybody wears white. She shows up wearing a red dress. It's a movie called Jezebel, and it was the height of like just arrogance and stuff like that. And this is like so when Elon Musk shows up in the White House and he's wearing a black MAGA hat and everybody else is wearing a red MAGA hat, including the president of the United States, who's the inventor and the king of all this. So you know, guys like that, I mean, their pride goeth before a fall, and Donald Trump is like just waiting there to pull the fucking rug out from the guy after he gets all the money. So, do you imagine what Musk must have felt when he finds out that that bill doesn't include that extra thing that those benefits for buying an electric car that was keeping him in business, that the Biden administration was making him a fortune, and
Sure.
now his guy Donald Trump is going to take that away. I mean, could you imagine how he felt at that point? I
Got
mean,
played.
what? Are you? I haven't been played, and then Trump, he doesn't care. He can find
No,
another billionaire. I mean, who cares? It's like, I mean, he just outsmarted the guy completely, and you got to give it to them. I mean,
he
you
is the
just
great.
got to give it to him.
This president is the greatest showman. He is able to. He says what he's going to do. He does what he says. There's for lack of it is he's like you said, he's a straight shooter. He's been
I don't know if he's a straight
well.
shooter.
I mean, in regards to shooting
I
from the
wouldn't say
hip,
he was a straight shooter. He doesn't. He's not trying to. With guys like Musk, who's like people like that, he's not trying to trick his voters. I mean, he's not going to do anything because they know he's not going to do anything he says he's
he
going to
made
do.
in that fight. He basically made Elon his bitch.
Absolutely, totally. I agree with you. Absolutely, 100%. And Elon's not going to get back. And what did he get out of it? What did he get out of it?
I
His
mean,
ca- his stock went down. He had protesters in front of every single Tesla dealership. You
yeah,
know, and that whole time when he was running around with the Doge thing with the chainsaw, he was taking the heat off Trump. He was capturing all the heat.
yes, he,
Everything that people were, people don't like when other people lose their jobs. So, and they're going
imagine.
like, well, it must be Musk. It's not Donald. I mean, he wouldn't do a thing like that. So, and then Musk is like completely taking it. He's just, yeah, that's right. I'm gonna make you lose your job. I'm gonna come in there and fire you. You know, I mean, it's just not.
Smoke and
Yeah.
mirror. This is what this is. These are things that I think that if he was still alive, he would be talking about this. I think that William Cooper would had be like
Well,
beside himself.
well, that's one of the questions that I get a lot. I get a lot questions like, well, what do you think Bill Cooper would think of Donald Trump?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah,
I mean, that comes up, I mean, the 17 people that know that I wrote this book about Bill
this
Cooper, so like,
more than
and
people that
people
know that
they
you wrote that.
often ask that same question, right? So, and I don't really exactly know how to answer it. I mean, my hopeful answer is because I like Bill Cooper. I read a whole book about him. You had to kind of, I mean, I don't like to write about people I don't like.
Sure,
I don't want to live with them, because when you write a book about somebody, that person's in your head all the time. And these things can take like 2 and 3 years. It isn't like you just dash it off on the internet and go to the next thing. It's like,
research and just
so like I respected the guy. I respected that he was a veteran. I respected all these kind of things. I respected him for even his insane stuff. I respected him because like at least he meant it,
right.
So he wasn't trying to trick anybody. He was driving himself insane, which is what happened. But so I would hope that Bill Cooper would say, I believe in the Constitution of the United States, which is what he always did. And if you believe in the Constitution of the United States, you've got to call the current things that are happening. You got to call them out on the carpet
Sure,
and say what they are for what they are. You can't run around with it. I mean, remember the beginning of Bill Cooper's radio show with the jackboot thugs, and the barking dogs and stuff like that. What does
right.
that sound like to you now? I mean, who's doing that now? You know,
Yeah.
so then I say, I don't know. Bill Cooper, maybe he would be a Trumper, but I doubt it.
I think that he would be someone who would be. I feel like he would be questioning a lot of things that are going on right now. I mean, I think that the show would be still. He would still be doing that piece of the show, and I mean,
I mean, because
he'd still be calling out Alex Jones, and I haven't seen Alex Jones in days. I haven't.
well, he's got a lot of problems, Alex Jones, and well deserved. I mean, an unforced error, you might say. But I mean, the thing about Bill Cooper also, which people don't remember because they don't listen to the show. But I mean, he used to play all these jazz records. He was a hipster. He was like a kind of like California laid before he got, became the Patriot, Bill Cooper. He was like this laid back guy who had a political show that was like, he used to drive people crazy by playing these Louis on because he played the trumpet. He was trying to learn to play the trumpet. That was one thing that Bill Cooper wanted to play. That was one of the few things that people that knew him really felt that he was totally serious about. He really wanted to play the trumpet. So his favorite trumpet player was Louis Armstrong. Happens to be a different color than some of his, most
Right.
of his listeners, right? So like, and he would say, "You people are just a bunch of jerk offs." Louis Armstrong, what did he do? He did it. He didn't sit around on his ass telling, complaining about everything. He got out there and he did it. And they didn't like the color of his skin. He didn't care. He went out there and did it. And that's great. That's fine. More points for Bill Cooper.
There it is. That's what you're referring to, right?
Which
his introduction. I don't know. Can you hear his introduction?
I can't hear it on my side. See if you can get it. It's just so. It's the best single intro
It
of
is.
any radio show. I mean, maybe the shit.
Yeah, the siren.
You know,
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
and then the feet. You know,
right.
I mean, the Shadow, the beginning of the Shadow radio show, the Shadow Knows. That was pretty good. But Bill Cooper's thing is really one of the top 10 radio introductions of all time. You got to get it, Mario. Come on, you can get it.
Oh yeah, I got it. It's just not going to you. I don't know why it's not going to you.
Well, anyhow, people can listen to all those. The name of the show for people that are listening was called
Hours.
the Hour at a Time, and you can find them on the internet. I mean,
They're all over YouTube. That's where I was.
there's hundreds of them. Hundreds. I
Hundreds of
mean,
them.
hundreds of
It's
them.
interesting though when you go back and you look. I know that there were we talked about Alex Jones and the stuff that he's been going through, but Alex Jones listened to William Cooper to kind of get his, should we say, shtick of what
Yeah,
Alex Jones had become.
yeah. Well, I mean, he used to, like, when I was a kid, we used to, your parents would be screaming at you to
Right, turn it
go to
down.
sleep, go to bed because you got to get up to go to school. But you'd always be listening to Cousin Brucey or Murray the K, in your transistor radio. That was Alex Jones. I mean, he listened to Bill Cooper. It didn't come on until late at night, and he'd be listening to Bill Cooper every night, and and he admired Bill Cooper. And there was a lot of fight between two of them because they're just like two guys who were never going to get along. But
Right.
but and I think I might have said this on this show, but I think it's important to remember that the night that Bill Cooper was shot, nobody covered it. Not one person, like, of any news. I mean, they sent the local TV shows came up there the next morning, but Alex Jones called up in the middle of the night and started and put it on his show. He was trying to find out what happened to Bill Cooper because he really cared. He really cared what happened to Bill Cooper, even if he supposedly didn't like him. I mean, Bill Cooper was his idol, So,
I mean, it's just when you go back, you have that piece where the two didn't get along, but someone he also did not like was, the other guy who did a show that was in the midst of the same time period was, Art Bell, who had his, big radio show over there at
well,
that was
Bill Cooper hated Art Bell.
hated Art Bell.
He hated Art, but that
Hated.
was because Art Bell had a bigger audience than he did.
Well,
I
yeah.
mean, absolutely, it was all
I mean,
jealous.
I mean, he was clearing 800 affiliates at night.
I mean,
800 is a lot of radio station, and I
that
mean, I can know.
Art
I know.
Bell, Art Bell is a legend, man. I mean, he's like there's a few of these guys. Long John Nebel, you know who that was, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, a few of these people that had these kind of shows that really took off, But see, Cooper originally he was on this KCR. I can't remember the name of the thing, but he was on a high power uh Christian. It was called. I thought for a long time I thought it was Worldwide Country Radio, but it was Worldwide Christian Radio.
That's
The
right.
C was for Christian. So
Right.
Cooper was on there, and he had a huge. I mean, people, you could hear him all over the place.
Right.
And then,
Because
of course, being
he,
Bill Cooper, he got in a fight with them. They threw him off, And
sure.
then for the next 10 years or so of his career, it was all catch as catch can, like trying to get a signal,
Right.
and
They're
trying to
doing
work, and then half the time you couldn't hear it, which
right.
also for his fans made it even better because it was more like a message from God. It barely came in, You had to
Yeah.
listen to it. It didn't show up every night.
Right.
Maybe it'll come tomorrow night. It's like
I mean, the mysterious.
it's like I mean, if you can imagine that. I mean, but it was cool, man. It was
Yeah.
cool.
And that for someone who was not in radio in '97 when I came across Art Bell, I'm like, what is this? But I've always and this is probably me in general, as even as a moderator host, I'm intrigued, but I don't obsess. I'm not spending all of my waking hours
Oh,
looking at
Well, that's because you're a normal person. I mean,
well,
everybody
I mean, that may be the case, but I mean, I have I'm the guy in the grocery, with my little grocery cart, and I am waiting to check out, and then I see the tabloid, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So then I look, and then after oh, it's my turn to move, I move up, and that's how I've always been when it comes to this. So maybe that's on me, because there are other people that are way more enthusiastic, but the one thing that I always want to say, regardless on political piece, just remember this: when this kinds of stuff, when these types of things are happening, we need to make sure that we're asking the question: wait, did that really just happen? Are we? Are we? Wait, what was that? You know what I mean? Like, people, I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, a libertarian, whatever party you might be. There are people that are out there that are being taken away, and if whatever their immigration status is, regardless, that is got to be the most terrifying thing. And where are they going?
well, I mean, it's just like I mean, really, I mean, it's heartbreaking, really. It's
It
just
is.
heartbreaking to see the United States government acting this way. But it's not the first time, man. Exactly 100 years ago, if you look at the history of the USA, if somebody bothered to look into the actual history of the thing,
Yeah.
you would see that after World War One, from 1919 to around 1926 or something like that, there was a whole thing about putting them in. They passed these things. In 1924, they passed a thing called the Chinese Exclusionary Act. In other words, what they did there was that there were a number of Chinese people that were in the United States that built the railroads and a bunch of other stuff. They needed them, right? But
Mhm.
they didn't want them to reproduce. So they banned all Chinese women. I mean, how draconian can you be? You got all these males there working in restaurants and stuff like that, and their wives can't come, and no women can come. And this was just the law of the land. Look it up, 1924, the Chinese Exclusionary Act. Just look it up, do your own research, my friend. You'll find that there's been these things. That's one of the reasons which it's both heartening and disheartening that the country has gone through these periods before where not to mention the whole slavery and segregation. I'm not even going to get into that, but I mean, the idea of immigrants and this kind of thing was like, you know I really believe that my grandparents were probably illegal. I mean, some of them came through Ellis Island, which made them legal, but not all of them. Some of them came from Canada,
Right.
and so that's how many generations do you have to be born here before, like, people are going to be willing to accept you. I mean, it's just, I don't know. These white guys are just a little bent out of shape about this kind of stuff.
I mean, that's
So,
something that's something you could say, not something I can say. I mean, you
yeah, I
know,
mean, it's like, I mean, it's heartbreaking. And really, what do they want to do? They just want to make a living like anybody else. I mean, yeah, there's crooks and criminals among them,
but
and there's crooks and criminals among every population.
I go back, and there was a movie that was a Sundance film called The Day Without a Mexican, and like all it was like all these Mexicans.
There'll be a very frustrating day for the people that live in LA.
Yeah, I, they're like, you go back and they're like, where's Consuela? She wasn't there to clean the house. you know and there was a joke where even like one of the babies went missing too. They're like, where's my daughter? And the mom was looking for the baby, and the baby was gone too, because the baby was half Mexican, and so the baby was gone too. um but there was no one to pick the fields. There was no
Well,
migrants to work the field. This in this film, it showed these people. They're like, what's going on? Where is everybody? And so they're like, man, we got to do all this work now. It was just interesting to watch this movie, I'm
Well,
not
I
saying
mean, I just think it's really not that. I mean, I'm not in favor of people just running across the border. I
I'm not
mean,
saying
I
that
mean, I
you
mean, like but there's reforms that can be made that doesn't necessarily have to include, coming in the middle of the night. I'm not saying they're doing this. I mean, there's a lot of rumors, there's a lot of stuff that happens just on
there.
both sides, right? So, like,
Yeah,
you can't, and until it becomes. I mean, I hate to bring this up, but until 1945, for the most part, nobody knew what was happening over there in Germany. I mean, they just didn't know. I mean, the people in the concentration camps, they got burned alive. They knew, but I mean, a lot of people didn't know. They just didn't know, and they didn't want to know. So,
the
you
the,
know,
mi- the misinformation right now, to kind of go back to uh, Alcatraz, alligator Alcatraz. Someone on social media said that they were installing a incinerator, and I
that,
was like,
that,
I
I don't
was
believe
like,
that. I
oh
mean, well, I mean, and look, there's a road that goes. I used to live down there, right?
yeah,
I know it, right? So, like, there's a road that goes across the Everglades called Alligator Alley. It goes right through the sawgrass.
right,
I mean, if you're an environmentalist, you're not really that fond of that road because it is screwing up the Everglades. But we don't even care about that. Let's not even get into that. So,
yeah,
like, the Trump, he loves these names. The alligator Alcatraz. I love it. It's like, he's they're not going to really do it. I mean, there is a detention place down there, the Chrome detention place, which I've actually been in because doing some story. I don't remember even which one, but it's a big place for illegal aliens. When the Haitians remember the Haitian boat people.
yeah.
When was I don't remember when that was. Maybe 1990s,
90s,
2000, early 2000s. But
yeah,
I mean, there was all kinds of stuff, and now you don't hear anything about it. But I mean, if you look at Haiti now, they don't even have a government. I mean, why? I mean, gangs run the whole place. Why would you want to get away from there? I mean,
sure.
you'd have to be insane to want to stay there. And so, it's a very difficult question because I understand that people don't want to live around people that aren't like them. But it's
But,
just that's the deal in any urban situation in this country. You're gonna have to live with people that don't look like you. And if you don't like it, you're just gonna have to get used to it. And if you want to move out to the suburbs, you know,
but
sooner or later they're gonna be there too.
yeah, but this is almost as war. This is worse than 9/11 because I mean, it's just people then were being racially profiled back then as well, and my God, that
Well,
was terrible. I
what do
mean,
well, actually I wanted to ask you a question.
yeah,
This guy got elected, he's gonna be the mayor, Mamdani, right?
right.
What do people out on the West Coast think about this?
They like it. They have
They
no
like it?
issue. They thought Como was a bum. They thought after
Almost definitely. If there was ever anybody that got what was coming to him, it's
he
definitely
got
Andrew Cuomo. But
he
you know, he man, I mean, I didn't vote for Mondami. I got to tell you because to me, 33 years old. I mean, New York City is a complicated thing. You want somebody to know something about it,
sure.
But
That
when
that
I
that's
when
a
I
good
found
stuff.
out that he won, I felt that was great. I mean, because young people, and this is a really big topic. At a certain point, who's really going to have to live through all this shit? This ain't going to be me. I'm 77 years old, man. I'm on the last train out of here. You know, I mean, then I don't know how old you are, but I mean, the young
47.
people the young people are the people that are going to have to live through, whatever is going to happen because of this. If it turns, I'm optimistic that it won't stick, right? But if
Right.
it did, you know, that's a rougher life than the one that we've lived. I
I
mean,
think someone like my daughter who was like, man, my generation's been through a lot. We've had COVID. She wasn't a part of 9/11, but she had the COVID situation. She's seeing this stuff that's going on, and she's been pretty. I would say she's not one. She asks a lot of questions. She's not a protester. She's not someone out here, she definitely asks a lot of questions, and good for her for asking. But I feel that it's her generation that is going to un-F what has happened, and it's going to
Well,
take,
it's not going to be easy, believe me.
yeah,
You know, and also, I mean, for instance, like when you elect somebody who's like 33 years old, I mean, at least he looks like you, even if he happens to be a Muslim, right? So, I mean, you know, because people don't care that much about that kind of stuff in younger people. So, like,
yeah,
the thing is, look at the politicians that they've gotten stuck with. My daughter's 41 years old, right? She's 41 years old. So, the politicians that she remembers are, you know,
Clinton.
maybe a little bit of Ronald Reagan,
Oh,
George Bush the first, Bill
sure,
Clinton, then the loathsome George W. You know,
right,
and then and then you get this kind of like Obama thing, which maybe for people of her persuasion, that was like, oh great, look at this the guy who actually read a book once in his life, you know. So and now you got this. So you know, it's a rough road. I mean, at least when I was growing up, I would hear like, oh, Senator Hubert Humphrey of Minnesota, or like,
yeah,
and even these people, like, supposed to be legitimate individuals who thought a lot about the law and stuff like that, you know. I mean, regardless of what they really were like, the implication was that they were statesmen and they knew things and you could trust them.
right.
So, now I mean, gee whiz, I feel sorry for them. I mean, I feel guilty too. I feel a little guilty, maybe
I
even a lot guilty about it because, our generation, especially my generation, not necessarily yours. I mean, we had every fucking thing you can think of. I mean, if you want to hitchhike across the country, you weren't thinking about getting murdered. You just
right,
didn't. It's
right,
like, so, I mean, it was fun. I mean, what can I tell you? And so there was a lot of backlash to that, and the subsequent generations got the backlash, and and now they're just work. I can't believe how much young people work. They're working 24 hours a day. It's like they're always working. They're always tense about working. I mean, it's a rough life. It really is.
the
You
younger
know,
generation. The I mean, I'm 47, so I would say that even younger people than I am are like, I just, yeah. I mean, I'll work and I'll work hard, but I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm like, I still want to spend time with my family and people that I care about
well, I
versus,
mean, now you're in a situation. These people are in a situation where, like, you're never off duty.
yeah,
You could always get a phone call or an
yeah,
email or something like that. It's
true,
just like
very, very much
that's
true.
that's that's the reason why they invented this Sabbath, right?
Yeah,
You're not supposed to work. You're not supposed to think about those things that you think about all the rest of the days. Like Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever day it was your day of rest, you were
right.
supposed to rest. So
Um,
now
uh,
that's not happening now.
no, no. I mean, clearly, even when I have to, you have obligations even to the radio stations where I'm, going to take a vacation, but the show still must go on. I
Well,
still.
speaking of that, I want to make a plug. Is that
All
okay?
right, yeah, do plug away.
Well, I want everybody, people who are, this is not for everybody, but it might be for some people. But see, I'm going to tell you that there was a movie, American Gangster. Remember that movie?
Yes.
Denzel Washington. People
Yeah.
thought movies made $400 million, right? So that is based on a story that I wrote. I found Frank Lucas. I and wrote the first story about him, and I'm saying I got paid for them when they bought my story and made it into that movie. But it wasn't really the story of really Frank Lucas. So there is a documentary that just came out last week, made by the famous Legs McNeil, the author of Please Kill Me. Are you familiar with this book? Punk book.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so like it's on Tubi. It's called Pusher Man. And a bunch of us, I'm in it, and a bunch of other people are in it telling it's a talking head kind of thing. But it's fun. It's
Did
really
you have
kind
a
of
good time?
fun. But
Yeah.
it tells the real story of how a journalism article is supposed to be true, right? Journalism is
Right.
supposed to be true, and how it makes the transition to becoming this big Hollywood film. And that's what it's about. And it's kind of eye opening in a weird way. When I saw it later, he did a very good job on putting it all together. And it's kind of just like a behind the music thing about a movie, you know. It's
Yeah.
like so you can watch it. It's on Tubi and a bunch of other things, and it's called Pusher Man, and I think people will enjoy it.
We'll put in the podcast as well with the link. Before I let you go, that fine that CBS took for that that 60 Minutes piece, man. Oh man.
That's a brutal one. I can't believe why they would roll over for this guy like that. What? I mean, William Paley, the founder of CBS, he wasn't going to do a thing like that. Gay Talese, you ever hear of him? He's a famous journalist, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, he wrote on him. He's still alive. He's 90 something years old, right? So when I was a young journalist, I knew him, right? So he would say, I got one piece of advice for you, kid. You know, anytime you're doing a story, no matter what it is, no matter who's involved, you need to know that you're the most important person there. No matter if it's the president of the United States, you're the one that's going to write down that story. And it's on you to tell it correctly, right? So you shouldn't be nervous about talking to anybody. Just go over and talk to them because you have as much right to be there as they do. And that's the kind of journalistic, world that you grow up in. And now people don't even bother to talk to the person. They just look on the internet and repeat what they see there. So it's really kind of a difficult thing. And for
It
somebody
is.
who's like an old fart like myself, to watch this kind of stuff.
Well, and it's interesting because my dad is 73,
Mhm.
72, and we were having a discussion recently, and he was like talking about the deep state, and I was like, what in the hell do you even know about the deep state? I was like, are you doing my radio show now? Are
The
you
deep
doing
state.
I
Well,
was
there's always been a deep state. I mean, come on,
yeah, but I'm like,
they used to call it the permanent government, but it was like that's when the left wing was afraid of the deep state. They called it the permanent government. Now the right wing is afraid of the so-called deep state. What it really is people who are like civil servants who've been doing their job for a long time and actually know something about the topic that they're supposed to be covering. You know, like term limits. They had this guy in the New York City council, right? This guy
right.
Stanley Marcus. I'll never forget this guy. Yeah, it was 2-year terms. He was elected 12 times. But he knew everything about the sewers. He
Hmm.
knew everything about New York City sewers. So, which occasionally comes up, in a big city, if it rains
Yeah.
a lot. So, he knew everything about it. So, they put in term limits, and they replaced them with some guy, he had an ethnic constituency that felt that they needed a voice, but the guy didn't know anything about how to run the city, So this guy, Stanley, was out, and you just can't throw away wisdom like that. You can't do it, And
I think that we're seeing a day and age where people want to relate to their politician, but at what cost? At what cost is that happening?
what cost? I don't know, man. It's I really feel that everything's going to be all right. I really do. I mean, that's what I really feel everything's going to be all right. I mean, the country's been around a long time, or
It's just another blip in the.
they had the Civil War, all kinds of stuff, and all this stuff about the. I mean, it's true. There's a. I'm not saying it's not true. It's all the country's divided. You can't. I can't tell. It's difficult to talk to some of your own relatives. But just because the politics stuff is always going to come up, and you're always going to have an argument. So, I came up with this new technique, Marion. Mary, you know what I do now?
What do you do?
I try when I meet somebody who has a very radically different opinion about certain things that I do, I try not to bring it up in a conversation. And, and I try to and try to keep the conversation as civil as possible. But it would be stupid and shirking your own responsibility if you didn't speak your mind about it, right? So
Right.
what I do now is I try to be as civil as possible when I'm face to face with the person, and then I send them a letter. saying, I like to comment on what you said the other day, and this is why don't agree with what you said. And I might mention a few things, stuff like that, but try to
Right.
keep it on a civil level, because people are never going to get as out of shape and immediately lose their temper about something they're reading. It's just a different thing, right? So
Sure.
that way, I mean, I'm interested in keeping as many friends as I possibly can. I
Right.
don't want to lose a friend because we have different political. It's not worth it, man. But
For
you
sure.
want to be able to say what you want to do. So this is a win-win situation, because it's good for conversation. It keeps everything collegiate. It makes you think about. You have to think about stuff as opposed to just flying off the handle as soon as you hear something you don't like.
Right.
And also, it promotes literacy.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win situation.
It is a
And
win.
that's one thing I'm been trying to do that. I've been trying to keep to that little thing. It takes a couple extra minutes, but it's worth it.
Do you type it? Do you type it out on the keyboard and then send them?
Yeah, you send them an email or something like that. I'm not going to send them a letter and
Yeah. I
go
mean,
to the post office and stuff like that. I mean, there's a limit, but
sure.
I mean, I just think of, like, all right, you want to make sure that your views are heard.
Yeah.
You don't want to just, well, I'm just not going to say anything to this guy, because, like, it's not worth it to get in an argument, because I mean, they can say things that you really feel like, wow, that's the dumbest fucking thing I ever heard. So,
Right.
like, you want to be able to get that over, but there's no reason to have these endlessly fractious conversations and stuff like that. And people just, what the environment we're living in now promotes that kind of thing. And you've got to be able to think about it, to try to civilize the universe, right? As opposed to decivilize the universe and create as much havoc and disagreement, because that's when the devil gets in. That's where the devil does his work.
That's what they say.
That's where the
What
devil
they
the
say,
devil does its work. As soon as you see red, the devil is in there doing that thing, and he is. And I don't mind. I may not believe in God, but I definitely believe in the devil.
I,
So
I've seen him. I've seen him before. One time when I was at a campfire, and she was hot. I'm telling you, the devil showed up
well,
that day.
it's just more temptation, more
That's right. Right. I did
temptation.
not take a bite of the apple this time. This time I
Yeah,
did.
well, I mean, it's the world's a complicated and wonderful place,
It
and
is.
and if you look at it, depends on how you're looking at things. That's all.
I'll say this. I with everything that has been going on, I know that someone who's read the book, and I was like, "Do I read it again?" And I'm like, "I don't know that I need that kind of paranoia. I don't need that in my
Oh,
life."
you don't need to read it again. I mean,
Uh,
read
yeah,
the cliff notes, or I'll
notes.
tell you what it's about.
Right. I'm right. But I just think that if William Cooper was still alive, I think we would be hearing similar to what you're. I think he would be very Constitution. He would be to the Constitution, focused on that piece. And I think if our Bell was still alive, he would say that there's a secret government. Someone is running Trump. That's what I feel.
Well, I'm thinking that's totally. I mean,
That's a whole
I
nother
don't
story.
think I see. I don't know. It's hard. It's the typical thing to think is that somebody's running him. But what if he's running it all himself?
I,
He's
I,
just
yeah,
that. He's just that. He's exceedingly talented man. I mean, you got to just give him his props. I mean, I talk to these liberal morons, that live in my neighborhood, and they hate him. They hate everything he does. They
sure.
hate, and they can't stand him. And, like, the world's going to pot and everything like that. And the world is going to pot. But the thing is that, like, so I mean, I'm against legalized pot, by the way. So, a stoner like me. So
Right.
the thing is that you know, you just can't think that way. It just shuts down your brain. I mean, reductionism is one of the reducing things to this kind of, like, white and black and that kind of stuff. It's just night and day. I mean, there's a lot of gradations here, and if you think for yourself, you might actually find him. And I think that's what Bill Cooper was, on a good day when he wasn't really driving himself crazy or
Yeah.
drunk or something like that. That's probably what he thought. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of shades of gray in here. Maybe it hits you. It depends on what it hits you that particular day. And also as you know, probably when you're on the radio, the more sensational you are, the more chance you pick up more listeners, right? You're not there to be Miller Raper or something like that, or like
I mean,
the Dalai Lama. You just that's not your job. So
if it was up to me all the time, I would be telling everyone to pack your thermos, go get your Stanley, go put some hot coffee in it. You're gonna need it, and grab a good grab a good book. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't because I don't believe in that. I don't think it's that bad. It's bad, but I don't think it's. I'm not selling you.
it's not irretrievable.
Yeah, I think
It's not. It's if things look bad, it's true, but they're not necessarily finished.
right. Yeah.
So
On
that's
that
that's
note,
why that's why you got to wave the American flag. You've got to come up and understand that these people I mean, when I go out west visit my son, right?
yeah,
They said, "Well, welcome to America." I said, "I live in America." I'm an American. I mean, if you want to look at the map, I mean, New York City happens to be in America. And if it wasn't for us, you moron, you wouldn't have half the things that are cool that you think are cool, right? So,
right.
so in any event, America is a very interesting and wonderful place. And the idea that some people are claiming it for their own because they believe in these bonker kind of racist, whatever kind of ideas you want to characterize them, is just not acceptable. It's got to be fought.
On that note, yeah, we've hit the bonus hour,
See you,
and
man. I'll see
yeah,
you. Enough time talking to the likes of me, man.
I mean, for the radio show, as we wrap things up from the Pacific Northwest, I said that I would do this, and I know that it is summertime, and I promised this young lady, my daughter's sister, uh, she has two of them, and she was like, "Can you give me a shout out on the radio?"
Oh, all right, great.
Yeah, so I'd said that I would do that for her. It, to me, as we wrap things up from the Pacific Northwest, um, I got to thank you for always coming on to hang out, to talk shop, to talk conspiracies. Sometimes it's especially in this format of the political piece and whatnot. I really wanted to kind of dive into like the swamp. I wanted to get into the nuts and the nasty stuff of that piece. But it's always a pleasure to have you come on and
Alligator, Alcatraz. They're
right.
not going to swim out. The reason why it's so dangerous, alligator. I'll give you this last one. It's not because of the alligators, man. It's because of the Burmese pythons that grow up to 20 feet, who are invader species that don't belong there. You know, it's
Right.
like,
Oh,
that's why it's dangerous, because nature is out of whack. Not because. And
sure.
who did that?
Hmm. I wonder.
Anyhow, all right.
On that note,
Man.
as we wrap things up from the Pacific Northwest, I'd like to thank Mark. Mark, thank you for coming to hang out with us. You can find all his links in the podcast. Again, for my entire team, Mark Christopher, Audrey, and Sophia Magana, and myself, Mario Magana. Be sure to look up at the sky because you never know what you might see. Good night.